The Waldorf Astoria Grand Ballroom. 500 of New York's wealthiest elite in $20,000 gowns and tuxedos, crystal chandeliers, champagne flowing. And there, on stage under the spotlight, stood Richard Blackwood, billionaire, the man on the cover of Forbes magazine. He pointed directly at me. "Ladies and gentlemen, see that woman in the back? That's Elena, my maid. 5 years she's worked for me, scrubbing my toilets for $18 an hour." The crowd erupted in laughter. I stood frozen, wearing a white server's jacket. "I found her on Craigslist." Craigslist. The girl has no education, no skills. She's perfectly suited for cleaning up after her betters. More laughter. 500 pairs of eyes on me. Richard raised his champagne glass. "Let's give her a round of applause for 5 years of adequate service." That's when I slowly removed my white server's jacket. Underneath was a $12,000 Valentino evening gown. I walked toward the stage, every step deliberate. The whispers started immediately. I climbed the stairs, took the microphone from Richard's hand, and said 5 words. "Let me tell you who I really am." The room fell silent. "My name is Elena Martinez. I'm 32. And 5 hours before that gala, I was polishing the marble floors of Richard's $40 million penthouse. The apartment was obscene. A $200,000 Steinway piano, original Picasso paintings, and there I was, in my gray maid's uniform, making it sparkle. Richard walked past without even looking. $15,000 Tom Ford suit on his phone. "Coffee now, and it better not be cold." "Of course, Mr. Blackwood." As I made his coffee, I stared at my reflection in the chrome espresso machine. 5 years. 5 years of this. His assistant Sophie called. "Elena, Mr. Blackwood's tuxedo for the gala. It's ready, Sophie. You're a lifesaver. 500 guests tonight at the Waldorf. Every billionaire in New York." After I hung up, Richard told me I'd be serving drinks at the gala. "You'll fill in for the catering staff. Wear something less shabby. Try not to embarrass me. You people aren't used to high society." You people? I'd heard that phrase hundreds of times over 5 years. My jaw tightened. I understand. That evening, I went to my tiny queen's apartment. In my closet, behind the maid uniforms, hung a black Valentino evening gown. 7 years ago, I wore this dress when I stood before investors and secured $50 million in Series A funding for Martinez Tech Solutions. I was 25, a PhD from MIT, and I'd developed a financial security algorithm worth hundreds of millions. Richard Blackwood attended my presentation. He was impressed. He offered to be my partner. 60-40 split. I'd keep 60%. I was naive. I signed a 78-page partnership agreement without reading every word. Buried on page 47 was clause 17. If I failed to meet quarterly performance metrics he controlled, he could buy me out for $1. 6 months later, after my algorithm was complete, Richard triggered that clause. He sabotaged my metrics, forced me to sell for $1, then sold my technology to Goldman Sachs for $800 million. He built his self-made empire on my stolen work. So yes, I applied to be his maid. And for 5 years, I gathered evidence. Every email, every bank transfer, every crime. My phone buzzed. A text. "Tonight, everything is ready. A.E." I typed back, "I've been ready for 5 years." I put on the gown and headed to the Waldorf. The Waldorf at 7 p.m. was breathtaking. I entered through the service entrance, dumpsters and loading docks, while the front had red carpets and Bentleys. Inside, the head caterer handed me a server's jacket. "Here's your uniform. Circulate champagne. Make eye contact with no one important." I put the jacket on over my Valentino gown, hiding it completely. The grand ballroom was another world. crystal chandeliers worth millions, ice sculptures, a 30-piece orchestra, and 500 people dripping in wealth. I was invisible to them, just a hand holding a tray. I spotted Richard surrounded by other billionaires. James Wellington, oil tycoon, 4.5 billion. Patricia Vanderbilt, real estate mogul, 3.2 billion. Marcus Chen, tech investor, 2.8 billion. Richard was telling a story. So I told the guy, "You want a raise? Prove it." He worked 80-hour weeks for 6 months. Then I fired him and hired someone younger for half the salary. They erupted in laughter. I approached with champagne. "Champagne, Mr. Blackwood." Richard's eyes landed on me. His smile turned cruel. "Well, well, if it isn't my maid. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Elena. She scrubs my toilets." The group turned to stare. Marcus smirked. "You brought your maid to a charity gala?" The catering company was short-staffed. Elena here was kind enough to fill in. "Tell me, Elena, do you know the difference between Dom Perignon and dish soap?" Laughter, more people turning to watch. "Will that be all, sir?" I kept my voice professional. "Actually, no. Everyone here paid $10,000 per plate tonight. That's more than you make in 4 months. How does it feel to serve people so far above your station?" "I'm just here to work, Mr. Blackwood." "Of course. That's all people like you can do. Work for people like us." Patricia covered her mouth. "Oh, you poor thing." James chimed in. "How much do you pay her again?" $18 an hour. Can you imagine? To clean a 40 million penthouse. He leaned close. "You were desperate, weren't you? No education, no prospects. Lucky I gave you a chance." I looked him in the eyes. "Very lucky, Mr. Blackwood." I walked away, absorbing every insult. This was the plan. Let him expose himself. Then I saw Victoria Ashford, Richard's fiancée, stunning in a $30,000 gold Versace gown. She approached with false sweetness. "Elena, right? Richard says you're very reliable, like a loyal dog." "I do my best, Miss Ashford." She leaned close, whispering, "When I become Mrs. Blackwood next month, things will change. I don't want staff. Getting too comfortable. Understand?" "Perfectly. Good. Now fetch me champagne. The real stuff, not the cheap bottles you drink." At 9 p.m. the lights dimmed. A master of ceremonies took the stage. "Please welcome our most generous donor, contributing $5 million, Mr. Richard Blackwood." Thunderous applause. Richard walked on stage, basking in adoration. 25 years ago, I was a janitor at Goldman Sachs, $300 to my name. Today, I run 7 companies worth $3 billion. I did it through hard work and dedication. More applause. That's why I donate to education. I believe anyone can succeed if they work hard enough. Then his eyes found me in the back. In fact, I employ people from all walks of life. See that woman? That's Elena, my housekeeper. She's found her level in life. Not everyone can be a CEO. Some people are meant to serve. 500 heads turned. "Elena, come up here. Let's applaud 5 years of service." The spotlight hit me. This was it. Act 3, The Revelation, 2135 Firebury. I slowly removed my server's jacket. The $12,000 Valentino gown was revealed. Elegant, powerful. Gasps filled the room. I walked toward the stage. My heels clicked. The crowd parted. "Is that really a maid?" "That dress is Valentino. Something's not right." I climbed the stairs. Richard's smile faltered. "Well, look at you. Even the help can look presentable with effort." I took the microphone from his hand. Absolute silence. "My name is Elena Martinez. For 5 years, I've been Richard Blackwood's maid, but I'm not here by accident." Richard tried to take back the mic. "Elena, that's enough. 7 years ago, I secured $50 million in Series A funding for a company I founded. Martinez Tech Solutions. Our technology revolutionized banking encryption. 3 years later, that company was valued at $800 million. The massive screen behind us lit up. My friend Miguel, in the AV booth, had started the presentation. Photos appeared, me at tech conferences, shaking hands with CEOs. The headline, Martinez Tech Solutions, founded by Elena Martinez, PhD Computer Science, MIT. Turn that off, Richard shouted. Security. No one moved. Richard attended one of my presentations. He offered to invest $10 million, but he wanted to be my partner. 60-40 split. I'd keep 60%. The screen showed our contract. I was 25, brilliant with technology but naive about business, so I signed a 78-page partnership agreement. The screen zoomed to page 47. Buried on page 47 was clause 17. If I failed to meet quarterly performance metrics Richard controlled, he could buy me out for $1. The crowd gasped. 6 months after our partnership, after my algorithm was complete, Richard activated clause 17. He sabotaged my metrics, delayed meetings, reassigned my team. The screen showed emails, Richard's communications with lawyers. Elena doesn't read contracts carefully. Once the tech is done, activate clause 17. Sabotage Q2 metrics. Make sure she fails. Buyout happens next month. She sells for $1. Then we sell to Goldman for $800 million. The audience was shocked. Within 1 year, Richard forced me to sell my 60% stake for $1. The screen showed the check. $1. My signature. Dated 7 years ago. He took my company, my technology, my life's work, and sold it to Goldman Sachs for $800 million, his self-made fortune, built on my algorithm. This is slander, Richard shouted. I'll sue. For what? Telling the truth? A man in a suit walked onto the stage. Detective Marcus Reeves, NYPD Financial Crimes Unit. Mr. Blackwood, I'm Detective Reeves. You need to come with me. Richard's face went pale. I haven't done anything illegal. Actually, you have. Many illegal things. The screen changed. More documents. For 5 years, while cleaning your penthouse, I had access to your office, your computer, your files, and I found something interesting. Bank records appeared. Wire transfers to the Cayman Islands, Switzerland. Millions in tax evasion. Emails showing stock manipulation. Photos of Richard bribing government officials. I documented everything. Every email, every transfer, every bribe. 5 years of evidence, and I handed it all to the FBI yesterday. 2 FBI agents emerged from the crowd. Richard Blackwood, you're under arrest for securities fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, and bribery. They pulled out handcuffs. The ballroom exploded with noise. Richard looked at me with hatred as they cuffed him. You destroyed my life. I gave you a job. Stop. You destroyed my life. You stole my company. You humiliated me for 5 years. You made me scrub floors in a penthouse built with my technology. I stepped closer, my voice dropping so only he could hear. So yes, I applied to be your maid. I spent 5 years gathering evidence, and I waited for the perfect moment. Loud again. You said I found my level. You were right. But my level isn't scrubbing floors. It's standing here watching you get exactly what you deserve. The agents led him away. The clicking of handcuffs echoed. I turned to the crowd. Victoria, did you think Richard loved you? He's $400 million in debt. He was marrying you for your $600 million trust fund. The FBI found the paperwork. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. She ran from the ballroom crying. I addressed the 500 people. I'm sure many of you are wondering if you're next. Let me give you advice. Treat people with respect, because the person you underestimate today might destroy you tomorrow. I set down the microphone and walked out. The next morning, my phone exploded with news alerts. Maid takes down billionaire. Elena Martinez, 5 years of revenge. FBI, more charges expected. I made coffee in my tiny studio trying to process everything. My phone rang. Thomas Richardson, CEO of Richardson Global Industries. Miss Martinez, what you did was remarkable. I researched your background. Your Martinez algorithm is brilliant. My company is launching a cybersecurity division. 500 million budget. I want you to run it. 30% equity. Full control. No partners who can steal from you. I couldn't speak. Say yes. The world needs people with integrity. Yes. Yes, Mr. Richardson. I'd be honored. A week later, I met my father in Central Park. He'd been living in a shelter. Mija, I saw you on TV. I was so scared but so proud. I handed him an envelope, keys and documents for a new apartment, fully paid. He cried, Elena, I can't. Yes, you can. 5 years ago, you told me, patience, Mija. The right moment will come. You were right. Your mother would be so proud. I did this for her, for you, for everyone stepped on by people like Richard. 2 months later, I stood in my corner office at Richardson Global. The plaque read, Elena Martinez, Chief Innovation Officer. Miguel visited with champagne. Your first day in your new empire. How does it feel? Surreal. 2 months ago, I was cleaning toilets. Now I'm running a $500 million division. My phone buzzed. Richard Blackwood sentenced, 22 years federal prison. I raised my glass. To justice. To patience, Miguel added. We clinked glasses. That night, I went back to my Queen's studio. I was moving soon but wanted to remember where I came from. On my wall, a framed photo of me at my first tech presentation, and next to it, my old gray maid's uniform. I'd never forget. I sat at my kitchen table, working on a new algorithm to detect financial fraud before it happens. Something that could prevent another Richard from destroying another Elena. People always asked why I waited 5 years. Why not expose him immediately? The answer is simple. Revenge is a dish best served cold. But justice requires precision, timing, proof. If I'd gone public immediately, Richard would have buried me in lawsuits. But by waiting, gathering evidence methodically, choosing the most public moment, I didn't just take him down. I made sure he could never get back up. I walked to my window. The Queen's skyline wasn't as impressive as Manhattan's, but it was real, earned. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. Settled in. Thank you, Mija. Te amo. I smiled. Te amo, Papa. Richard Blackwood taught me that anyone can fall, but I taught him something more important. Anyone can rise, even a maid.